changes and the players come out. Webs of lies spinning from their mouths. Stop, look and listen for a little while. You'll see the crowd behind their smile. Pay no attention to the men behind the curtain. Just look away when you see the blood spurting down to a steady drip. I promise to leave you a little bit. I'll be back for another drink tomorrow. I love the taste of your terror and your sorrow, bathing in your blood. It's never enough.
Hello and welcome to the Iron Mountain Hour. It is Sunday, November the 14th, 2021. My name is Cliff.
Tim.
And we've got Golf with some music bringing us in here. A little bit of stuff he's working on the synth there. I like it. It's a good way to bring it in. I want to thank you for joining us tonight. Tim just got back in town just a little bit ago. He barely made it for the show.
Jet lag.
Yeah, he's all screwed up.
But it's all good.
That's all right, man. We're having a good time. We're just chilling, looking at some news here. I had a few objects I wanted to bring to the table tonight, but Tim wanted to tell us a little about
Gotham City.
Yes, and where he just got back from.
Actually went and got a tattoo to cover up a surgery scar. That's the only reason we went to Philadelphia. The artist up there, that's where the artist was, so that's where we went.
Okay.
She's been waiting for a while because of lockdown and all that. But that's the first time I've been to New York and Chicago and all those places, but I didn't realize how Gotham-y Philadelphia was. Like, that's the most Gotham-y city I could think of, because you'll have for example, this isn't exactly, but you have like a Macy's, a nice huge skyscraper, and then some skinny little building from the Benjamin Franklin's brick house. It looks like something out of a Tim Burton film, but made of bricks, and there's a lot of old, really super old stuff, and a lot of the typical like stuff you'd see, like the masonry triangles everywhere, stuff like that. But like when you go to DC, it's like a little bit more brazen, where there's like, it's like a nice version of the compass everywhere, and here it's like all creepy and hidden in places. Oh, it's a very strange city, and the couple of Uber drivers we use seem to concur that it's a pretty creepy city. I didn't dislike Philadelphia. The only thing I would like to bring up about it, I didn't feel in danger, despite the fact that it's the number one crime rate, I'm pretty sure, in the United States right now. When I checked, as of 2019, it was like something crazy, like 500 murders. Not assaults or like straight murders.
Right.
Yeah. So, but it didn't feel as dangerous. But then again, I didn't get off the main part. But the part I wanted to bring up is I gave them I tried 3 different places to get a cheesesteak, and I know Pat and Gino's doesn't count. And everybody in the city, as soon as you say you tried Pat and Gino's, they like drop their head, like, why'd you do it? And but I had to, because it's the only thing open at 1:30 in the morning. But then we tried a couple other places. I don't want to trash it too much, but maybe next time we'll go, I'll find that elusive, mythical Philadelphia cheesesteak. This is it. In case the rare chance that a Philly person gets a hold of this. It's almost like a meat rocket. It's like you've got a long hoagie, and then it's too much meat. Okay. It's just all meat, a little bit of cheese on top of it, and then...
Did they put Cheese Whiz, or did they give you...
They give you a choice at most places you went.
I've always heard if you put Cheese Whiz on it, that's how you get a real Philly. And I don't
know if that's the case or not.
That doesn't really sound that great.
But it might be Philadelphia style.
That's what I mean. I think that's the native style, or at least that's what I've heard. But it doesn't sound good, but if you do it, it's actually really good. You dice those peppers and onions up really small, put you some Cheese Whiz on there. Some of them eat it with ketchup, is also what I hear.
I'd be okay with that part, yeah.
But yeah, it's actually pretty good either way. I like it without the ketchup, but it's good with the ketchup too.
I don't want to sit here like what's funny about it is the girl who did the tattoo over the scar. I sat there and I talked because it's just me. I'm sorry. She goes, I said, I'm sorry. I don't want to give a bad first impression and make you think I'm super negative. She goes, actually, I don't think you're negative. I can't figure it out. So far, the only thing I know is what you don't like. And I was like, well, that sounds pretty negative to me. But it's always in a lovingly shit-talking sort of way.
Right.
I swear always. Unless it's something bad. But most of the time. And so in Philadelphia, I didn't hate it. I didn't get that mythical cheesesteak I was looking for, so I guess I gotta go back and look at the Batman buildings and stuff.
Well, I've never been to Philadelphia. I've been to Pennsylvania, a few different places, to Gettysburg and Amish country over
Mountains
there.
and
Yeah,
landscape. Yeah.
went to the intercourse area there, and that's pretty fun. Play on words all through that whole area. If you've never been, it's all kind of sexy talk for the names of the towns.
bumper stickers that says
cute little stuff like. You got them in a line. There's like, I don't know. It's like Bird in Hand, Intercourse, or Blue Ball, Smoketown.
Yeah.
A bunch of little Amish innuendo where all the Amish live. It's pretty fun. But I never actually made it to Philadelphia, but I've seen pictures of some of the buildings there, and they do look very gothic, kind of like the Chrysler Building. If I could quit bumping this table with my knee.
Well, I was sitting up here playing drums on with my
Oh
big
yeah,
buttons,
that's all right.
So I need to quit.
But yeah, it was a pretty cool looking city. I didn't realize the Masonic influence because I've probably not seen enough of it, but it was the first capital of the nation, and there was a lot of Masonic influence in the founding of the nation. So that would.
I think a lot of that Masonic stuff. If you're a normal person who doesn't read creepy books and stuff, you just don't notice it because you don't see anything creepy about buildings that always have the triangle top archway and
it's just the way you build
all
a building.
kinds of stuff like that. You just think it's Roman. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I don't think there's anything inherently creepy with the Masons being involved. I think the Masons as an organization probably get a bad name.
Well, no, I guess what I mean by.
Oh no, I think people see it that way though. I think they do.
Yeah.
Because there were several of the founders who were Masons. There were several presidents who were Masons, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they were, part of some secret society hell-bent on world domination.
I don't know if that's the truth, but I think the important thing is to separate it from the guy that lives next to you that goes to the Shriners and donates money to St. Jude's and stuff. It's not the same guys.
Agreed. So. And I think there was evidence that if you read some of George Washington's letters and a lot of early writings about Washington, he was focused on. He was a Mason, but he was focused on eliminating what he called, not what he called, but what was the Illuminati, the Bavarian secret society from the Freemasons. They were using. You
think there was a war?
Well, there was within the lodges.
Treasure?
Yeah, George Washington talked about it, and he was talking about removing them from, or cleansing the lodges of the Masonry of the United States from the Bavarian Illuminati, because these guys were bringing basically their own version. They were kind of taking over the lodges and infiltrating and trying to basically take back over the United States government from within, using the secret societies as a vehicle to spread their influence. This was according to George Washington's writings. So if you're interested in that, you can look it up. But
are they real?
I'm
just
if you search George Washington's letters, Illuminatis, it'll pull up all kinds of stuff you can read about it. It's interesting. If you're into that, we won't bore you with all the details of that here.
Well, I'm gonna have to be honest. I've not read a whole lot of Washington.
Well, you should also read his book on manners. It's pretty cool. I forget what it's called, but he wrote a short book. I think he was about 14 when he wrote it, and it's the ways a gentleman ought to conduct himself in public and private affairs. And he was wise beyond his years for 14.
I should probably read it then.
Of course, now Washington lived in a different time where you pretty much were. He was probably more of a man than I am now when he was 14. Because it was a hard life.
Well, considering
even for an aristocrat who
give a bunch of examples of why that's just true.
Yeah. So, but anyway, we got off of the masonry thing there a little bit. But but anyway, Philadelphia sounds like it was pretty cool, except for I hate you didn't find the cheese sandwich.
I didn't find that mythical
cheese steak
that I was looking for.
There used to be a place here in Johnson City called Philly's. Did you ever eat there? It was up. Probably. It's where the Babylon is now, up on the hill on North Run Street, in front of Target, in front of Books A Million. But that place made a great Philly cheesesteak. I think the guy actually was from Philadelphia. And there was a crap ton of meat in it, but it was really good. And I think they were only there for a year or two back in probably 2001 or 2002.
To be fair, I didn't try a True Blue Mom and Pop. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like they were all pretty big businesses established.
Yeah, I guess what you want to do is go and like talk to somebody like out on the street working and ask them where to get a Philly or something like that.
Yeah.
If you want to get the real deal.
Well, I won't drown you in a story, but I got most of my recommendations through a comedy skit.
Okay.
And then they seemed to confirm it through the Uber drivers that was an okay place to go.
Okay.
So let's get on with what we were supposed to be talking about before I continue talking about sandwiches.
Well, tonight's episode is about fake news.
Mm.
And we're going to go from a couple of different topics, from GamerGate to, well, what we called it, from GamerGate to the Metaverse. We got a lot of interesting news with Facebook saying that they're going to change their name to Meta over the last couple of weeks. And I wonder if maybe a lot of people are missing what a big story that is. Because I've had a little time to reflect on it. And when I look back at some of these things like GamerGate, it kind of really brings it all to where this thing may be going. And where I suspect Facebook and Google and the technocratic elite, as they're often called, would like to take us in this upcoming world after the Great Reset that we talked about in earlier videos. And to start, I think we need to look at a couple of things, like we have the media and the ownership of the media.
And what are we looking at here?
Right here we're looking at a list of the largest media companies.
Okay, I see Rupert Murdoch down there.
Yeah, that Fox is number 2. Number 1 is Wikipedia. Wikipedia reaches 1.7 billion unique visitors on a monthly basis.
So much of that's nonsense on there too.
Who's their biggest funder? Google.
Google
is their biggest funder.
Okay.
So that's pretty interesting right off the bat.
Is it through direct funding or is it through just how many people go to Wikipedia?
Well, they donate to. It says here that YouTube found they're the largest. Google was the biggest funder in 2020, along with the Wojcicki Foundation, which is Susan Wojcicki, who's the head of Google Foundation. With the largest donor to its endowment is Arcadia. Other major donors include Google Inc., Amazon, Musk Foundation, George Soros, Craig Newbork, Facebook, and the late Jim Pacha. Now, Wikipedia spends $55 million a year on salaries. And they have a total of $112 million in expenses. Now, I don't know how much they get total.
The content user generated for free, so what are they spending that money on?
Well, it costs money to keep those servers up, to keep research, to make sure that things that are accurate. Because even though people do change things on there and people do add content to it, it does have moderators that fact check it and stuff like that. So they have salaries for people to do that.
Put into opinions though.
There is a lot of opinion. There's a lot of allegations of that. I don't have any examples right off the top of my head, but I've seen them where people have shown Wikipedia modified. I think one example, don't skewer me too bad if I'm remembering this incorrectly, but I think one example was during the 2020 election, the Hunter Biden laptop situation. There was the Wikipedia entry was changed to reflect it, and then that was reversed, and people were not able to change it back to reflect the laptop story at the time.
Gotcha.
I think that was one main example that I remember.
I can probably dig into that.
But yeah, there are examples of it if you're interested in it, of Wikipedia being censored for political motivations, or at least those are the accusations of the people who look at it. If we go on, we see number 2 is Fox, and Fox reaches 833 million unique monthly visitors. Now, it's in 2.6 million households on TV. But when we look at all their different things that Fox owns, they own News Corp, they own the New York Post, HarperCollins, the Wall Street Journal. They got a lot of online stuff. So they
I didn't know the Wall Street Journal was connected with Murdoch. mean just ignorance. But I think a really impressive number here because you've got the 833 right million, right? And you consider that the next step up is going to be Wikipedia, right?
Yeah.
Well, how many? I don't go to Wikipedia for news. I go to Wikipedia to like figure out what year they released the White Album and stuff like that.
But when you go to Wikipedia,
does it filter that?
Well, when you go to Wikipedia, you'll notice that, or it's usually because you Google something and it's the first result on your search results.
Right.
So that's the only reason I really use
That's what I'm saying.
Wikipedia.
So really, the biggest news part is actually the Fox versus YouTube would probably be over Fox, but
Well, I mean, I don't know. People Google things a lot.
but you're saying Wikipedia,
Yeah.
right? Specifically.
Yeah, but when you Google things and you're looking up information, and Wikipedia is the first thing you see. That's why they have the most.
But I'm just saying, like, I really think that's a disparity there, like,
Oh yeah,
because
yeah,
there's
yeah,
no
as
way
far
like
as-
they're not what's the best time of year to grow a dill pickle or something
Yeah,
like
right.
that's
They're
in there,
probably
too.
counting that as a,
Yeah, they've
as
got to
a
be
view.
counting that in there. So
Yeah.
there's no way that Fox isn't being more watched
Yeah.
than Wikipedia.
Well, that's when you count all their online views, all their
Watch
websites. But you're right. I think you're right about that.
Okay, that's my only point,
Because
yeah.
all the time I'll ask Google something, and you're right. It pulls it from
Yeah.
Wikipedia. That's the result that it reads out loud to you most of the time. And it shows us here that Rupert Murdoch has a controlling interest in News Corp. But we also see down here they own New York Post, HarperCollins, Wall Street Journal. Now look, Vanguard Group is the biggest owner of that, other than Rupert Murdoch. And then down here we also have one
BlackRock.
that's been in the news a lot, the BlackRock Fund, the
Yeah.
BlackRock Fund Advisors. So they're going to be a recurring theme. Let's go ahead and go over here to this one where I've already got. I don't have it pulled up. Let's pull it up now. Let's pull it up. Vanguard.
Vanguard Media.
And we see
Well, Vanguard
Vanguard
Group. My
is
bad.
in. We got it in 16 different results here, owning a lot. Big. See, it keeps saying the biggest shareholders. There's USA Today's owner.
Gatehouse
All
Media.
right, we see that. We got MSNBC. Vanguard owns 8.3, the biggest shareholder of MSNBC. We go on up here. We got Vanguard, CBS News, the biggest shareholder. Other than let's see it, but they own the family of Summer Redstone still owns the majority of CBS News, but the main other than that is Vanguard Group. Vanguard Group owns NBC News, 8.11%, the biggest shareholder, other than the Roberts family, who they have super voting shares of Comcast, which owns NBC. So they own the most technically, but the Vanguard Group has the most. Well,
Hulu,
Hulu's a part of that.
Universal, and Telemundo, which means they're cross-cultural at this point. Well,
Yep.
cross-language.
And around the world.
Mm-hmm.
If we look around the world, we see Vanguard is they are holding so much stock. I think their total worth, or how much they're worth, is $9 trillion. How many assets do they manage?
I don't know what you're talking about at this point. I mean, I understand dollars, but I don't know what necessarily managing
Manage
assets.
assets.
Especially, like, I get that, but I don't understand what you're
That's
what
how
you're
much
talking
people
about
have
when you get
invested in it.
when you
so,
get, like, trillions.
So people invest in the Vanguard Group, and the Vanguard Group it makes money investing that in other companies that
Yeah.
make them money. So when you see Vanguard's groups, we don't know who invests in Vanguard Group, but we have a pretty good idea. They do a lot of business with the Federal Reserve banks and the different central banks of the world. So total assets of as of January 31st, 2021, Vanguard's has about $7.2 trillion in global assets that they're managing. So they invest a lot of this in news media. And we look at BlackRock, 496 trillion US dollars that they manage. And they put a lot of this into media.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so and when we look at this chart here, we see that BlackRock is one of the largest shareholders of most of these media companies that we go through, the major media companies. When I did a find document, a find here in for Vanguard, I got 15 of 16. Okay, so that or I got 16 hits. So I keep going. I look at, we had MSNBC. We had CBS News, we had NBC, we got ABC News, so they own 7.6%. So they got a lot of interest in having things that they own also look good on these news networks. Wouldn't you agree, Tim?
That would definitely seem that way.
So as we look, we see Vanguard and BlackRock coming up repeatedly. They're two of the largest funds for investment in the whole world. They do a lot of business with central banks, and they own a whole lot of media assets. They control a large amount of media assets.
We kept saying BlackRock and it was a B word. I was thinking it was Mitt Romney. That's Bain Capital though. So sorry. Move on.
Well, Bain Capital, it may be involved in similar things. BlackRock, especially Blackstone, was another that has been in the news lately because one thing they've been doing, they've been not driving, but they've been going around to people. A lot of people are selling their homes right now, right? Mm-hmm. The prices are up. The market's high. Mm-hmm. People are doubling their money on their homes. And a lot of the people buying those homes aren't actually people.
No, it's banks. Yeah.
It's banks. And one of the largest that is grabbing the most property is Vanguard, BlackRock, and Blackstone. And these capital funds, they're buying these houses at inflated prices. They're even paying over, people are outbidding each other to buy houses over asking prices in our market.
Yeah.
Most of this has happened with just people in our markets. At least a lot of the deals that I am familiar with. But across the country, a lot of these homes are being bought up even above those prices. You think
it's the cities that they've emptied out?
That could be part of it.
Buy it while it's cheap, and then when people can come back in, they own everything.
That could be part of it.
Because why would you want to buy Appalachia?
I forget who was talking about it, but somebody was talking about a lot of the riots last year happened in the opportunity zones. So all these opportunity zones, they had a lot of.
One is Bristol, by the way.
Is it really?
That's how they got the casino.
Okay, well these opportunity zones, they have a lot of breaks for them as far as corporations that invest money there. They get to save a lot of money. So it is pretty interesting that a lot of these riots, if you look at the areas where they happened, it goes right along the edges of the opportunity zones. If you have the two maps overlaid, if I'd known we were going to talk about this, I would have had that ready.
Well, thanks,
but I did not know we were going to bring that up. But if you look it up, the maps overline perfectly, and then you had a lot of these properties sell right after that because a lot of them were ruined and they sold dirt cheap. Well, then who in the area is going to buy them if it's not really a worthwhile or it's not really a safe investment for you if you live in that neighborhood that's been getting burned down and the buildings actually do get burned down and everybody sells. That's probably not a local person necessarily.
It's just somebody who really cares about that, particularly just the land. It's really what they're after.
So.
Buildings. I mean, like if it's like a giant mall or something, obviously that might be different because like. The way they're doing the casino in Bristol, they're not just going to demolish the mall first. They're putting a casino in it. Then they're going to build the casino behind it. And after that casino is done, they're just going to demolish the mall and put a parking lot there. Pretty efficient how they're doing it. But Bristol is an opportunity zone. That was under the Trump administration when that was done. And that's... Everybody over there, even the the Democrat people over there seem to be okay with the casino. There really wasn't too many say no to the casino signs as far as I saw. There's a lot of say no to the dump signs right now because it stinks over there.
I haven't heard about that.
Well, ask Moose about it sometime. I didn't notice it. When we first were buying a house over there, the realtor was like, "Did you smell natural gas?" when it was coming down the stairs. What I was thinking was, I don't care, we're on the sidewalk. It's not. But later on, as I slowly started just working, because I would have to leave the windows open and let some cat pee smell out, I was over the window, the cat's pee smell was gone, and I was like, oh, this is a much worse smell that has now replaced the cat pee smell. And it turned out to be just the dump stinking real bad. So let's get back on the topic.
Hey, we need breaks every now and then, but back to it. We were talking about Vanguard, right? And we were talking about how Vanguard's a controlling interest in a lot of these, if not a controlling interest, a majority shareholder in a lot of these media corporations. And when you're talking billions of dollars and 10% of that is owned by one group, you're going to want to keep your investor happy in most cases. You're not going to want somebody to pull 10% of your operating budget, sell 10% of their shares. That's going to drop your stock's value too. So then that could cause a whole lot of other people to drop their stock if the Vanguard Group were to drop their stock from your company. Mm-hmm. It would have a very bad chain reaction effect that would ripple through your whole company if the Vanguard Group were to pull their money from you. So businesses with investment from the Vanguard Group and BlackRock advisors have a pretty good incentive to keep BlackRock and Vanguard happy. Well, if you've watched local news and especially evening news, you'll have seen a lot of advertisements from Pfizer. And Tim, we should have had this video ready to pull up. I've got it somewhere.
Just go to YouTube.
Yeah, I've got it right here.
You sent it to yourself?
Sent it to me. Or I sent it to myself here.
I think he starts.
Let's make sure we don't have an ad going here. But,
you'll probably have it. Well, we're not monetized, so it won't matter.
Nah, it won't matter. We'll find.
It's before that. It's back.
Yeah,
he does it with.
There.
He does it with.
We're almost there. But
it's interesting from.
Let's just roll that beautiful bean footage here.
Here's Mr. Door, which I'm not convinced he's.
Oh, a new analysis so low as it can't even be measured. That's how low their risk is. Here's from the New York Times. An unvaccinated child is at less risk of serious COVID illness than a
Morning spawn. Countdown to the royal wedding is brought to you by Pfizer. ABC News Nightline. Brought to you by Pfizer. Making a difference. Brought to you by Pfizer. CNN Tonight. Brought to you by Pfizer. Early Start. Brought to you by Pfizer. Friday night on Aaron Burnett Out Front. Brought to you by Pfizer. This Week with George Stephanopoulos is brought to you by Pfizer.
This weather report brought to you by Pfizer.
Today's countdown to the royal wedding is brought to you by Pfizer.
And now a CBS Sports Update brought to you by Pfizer.
Meet the Press Data Download brought to you by Pfizer.
This portion of CBS This Morning sponsored by Pfizer. On how to find the hidden sugars in the American family diet. Sponsored by Pfizer.
Okay.
And that's a long video. That's if anybody cares to look that up yourself. That was about 7 days ago. If you go to Jimmy Dore's videos, it's pretty easy to find, or you can link it in the description later on if we get done in the live cast. But I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, I thought so too, and that kind of it goes right to my point that these. Well, I didn't make this point yet. I just made this point in my head. Oh crap! And I just killed the. I just accidentally clicked.
The live stream.
Yeah. No. Here we go.
Oh.
I got it here.
Okay.
We'll look at it. We'll click it over here though. Who's the largest owner of Pfizer? What do we see right here? Coming up again. Largest owner of Pfizer, 7.78%. Vanguard Group. We got number 3, the BlackRock Fund Advisors. And another couple that we see here repeatedly, we see a lot of
Charles Schwab's a very common name. I've been seeing that in Norges Bank a lot.
Charles Schwab, these are coming from these are more regular people's pensions. You got State Farm here.
It's
Charles
up.
Schwab.
So congratulations, people's pensions.
These are for people investing through their work. That's what most of this is. But
State Farm's down.
The Vanguard Group is a State Farm is down. The Vanguard Group, though, appears to be
a large investor of Pfizer.
Yeah, and a large investor of a lot of media groups. Pfizer is a main advertiser on a lot of these media groups. And we also see Here locally, our news stations are owned by WCYB is owned by Sinclair Broadcasting. And I don't know if you remember when there was a video going around.
I think it's Sinclair Broadcasting.
It was there was a video going around of all these news stations repeating the same thing.
I remember that's a viral video.
It went around and it was like, this is very dangerous for our democracy. And I was trying to pull a video of it real quick. But I think you probably all saw it.
It was a viral video, I'd say.
Yeah, if you were paying attention to any news at any time in the last 10 years, here we go.
It's right there, though.
Yeah,
Hi, I'm Fox San Antonio's Jessica Headley.
And I'm Ryan Wolf.
Our greatest responsibility is to serve our
Treasure Valley communities,
the El Paso, Las Cruces communities,
Eastern Iowa communities,
Mid-Michigan communities.
We are extremely proud of the quality, balanced journalism that CBS 4 News produces.
But we are concerned about trouble and trending irresponsible, one-sided news stories
plaguing our country.
The sharing of biased and false news has become all too common on social media. More alarming, some media out.
So anyway, I think y'all remember that. But that was Sinclair Broadcasting that did those. Oh shit! I don't even know if I did that right. Maybe you heard it.
There was news people on there.
Okay,
yeah, so you got a little bit of a delay.
Okay, so it looks like we had it right. New technology, folks. Like I said, sometimes you can't teach an old dog new tricks, but sometimes it takes him a while, and he still fucks it up every now and then.
But you did see the one also that was similar to that right there, but it was like eating ice cream or something like that. It was like 900 news stations all saying this weird report about, it's a hot summer day, it's time to get some ice cream or something like that.
I do vaguely remember that one. Did you see, though, that Joe Biden is famous for liking ice cream, right? There's even, memes of him eating his ice cream while basically fiddling while Rome burns or Afghanistan burns, and he's just eating his ice cream. And
at least he's not playing golf. No, playing.
No, my point is that he's. I've heard that, and I've seen news stories. If you actually look it up, Alzheimer's Association says that ice cream is good for Alzheimer's.
Wow.
Have you ever heard that?
No.
Well, if you look it up, they say if you have a loved one who's suffering from Alzheimer's induced dementia, to keep plenty of ice cream at hand and make sure they have it as much as they want it, because for some reason, and they don't know why, it helps to keep the symptoms of Alzheimer's dementia at bay.
And I have, keep in mind, folks, I am a dropout behavioral God, I'm so sleepy. Behavioral psychologist, like it's the structure of the brain, stuff like that. I'm guessing ice cream doesn't affect the brain very much. I'm thinking that's probably dementia starts to carve out the top parts first, and so you start losing stuff like maybe if you change addresses, you just can't remember your address. But like ever since I was a kid, I was taught to remember my address was P.O. Box 800 and stuff. I can't forget that to this day, even though the street address is different. There's no P.O. Box in up Stony Creek anymore.
Yeah, I remember mine was a Route 2 box.
Mine was Route 2 Box 800.
Yeah,
so we're on the same
route.
But I was thinking the ice cream thing is such a sensory thing that we've been eating ice cream since we was a kid. And since that's such a deep-rooted memory, it probably causes other memories to be grouped with it.
That was the theory.
It can help you remember things.
Was the theory in the release that I read from the Alzheimer's Association. Yeah, they said they didn't know for sure, but that was their working theory on it.
If anybody's curious in Alzheimer's, since we brought it up, just about actual things to help it, and you can look this up for yourself. Don't take this as gospel, even though the science is really, really damn good for it. Lion's mane is a remyelinating. It causes the myelinated sheath. They had a rat study where they poisoned rats essentially and gave them
neurological
damage. Yes, and the rat studies they regained. I think it was 72% of. But it's called lion's mane. It's a mushroom. They eat it all the time in the South Pacific. It's not psychoactive. There's nothing to it. But if you're into weird shit like that. People that have damaged, like trauma to the dendrites and stuff, that is where the psilocybin comes in. It actually causes the dendrites to refire and reconnect, and since they're refiring, it causes lost stuff to come back.
My wife is going to be so happy that you talked about lion's mane.
Yeah, lion's mane's great. It's very, it's not really making too much of a fuss for some reason, probably because there's not a lot of money in it. But it would be it's called axonal shearing, is what happens with psilocybin. It's like kind of like your brain's like a big pot of jelly, and you picture these little hairs going through it, and like when you get like trauma, like whiplash, you imagine that bowl of jelly goes, and it doesn't look like there's a lot of damage. Those little fine hairs get snipped off, and it keeps happening that you snip them down, and it gets damaged. And we'll get back to.
Well, to bring it around, you're bringing it right around. I was just waiting on you to finish to talk about where you were leading us, because when you were talking about the psilocybin and the hypnotic state, that we're kind of going to an artificially induced version of that in the Metaverse. Okay. And that's where I'm going to end us up tonight. But I'll get us back on the track of where we're going. To sum it all up, a lot of our news media, I left off there. So to get back to that, WJHL, owned by Nexstar Media Group.
Yes.
If we look up Nexstar Media Group in our U.S. media ownership, they're one of the largest owners of local news stations. So you see your local news stations, your WJHL, for example, owned by Nexstar. Now, I'm not saying that, Sarah Diamond or Josh Smith or Paul Johnson or Kenny Hawkins are part of the Illuminati.
I know.
I'm sure they're lovely people.
Preston Ayers for Channel 5. I've met the guy plenty of times. He's just a dude. So that actually completely shatters my not even my theory, but the idea of the everything is scripted.
Yeah.
Because I'm tempted to be like, no, let's follow complete psychosis and just go to everything scripted. But it's like, man, I went to Dollywood with Preston.
Yeah.
I can't say that.
No, and so I don't want to give that impression. I think all the people who work there are people doing the job. I heard a former. It was a clip of a CNN from CNN. Where a reporter was going on, and they were talking about how reporters used to be working people. They used to be men on the street. They used to get out on the beat and talk to people, and used to make phone calls. Now it's kind of like she's saying that they sit in New York and they send out emails, and occasionally they'll fly out to do a story, but for the most part, they don't connect with the stories and the people who live throughout the country. And a lot of the problem with that filters on through our local news outlets, including our paper. I was looking at our Johnson City Press the other day, and they had 3 or 4 stories written. Okay, let me preface this by saying they do allow the local stations to do sports, weather, local crime beats. That takes up most of. That's what most of your local people want to see. That's kind of your entertainment portion of the news, but it's also your weather, your informational. That's going to affect you. The crime, I mean, it may affect you, but mostly I think people just like to talk about it and say, hey, did you hear about that thing that happened, over there last night? Did you hear about that fire? And I think that's all important stuff
I think it's like people like that stuff for the same reason we click on police videos and stuff. Like Schadenfreude, or if I'm saying that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, like
in see bad.
Yeah, I think that's part of it. But other people also just want to know what's going on in their community, and there is a certain amount of that allowed. But when I was looking at the local paper, there were a few articles, other than the sports and other than the. Well, I think that was it, actually, the sports and everything else. There was only like 3 or 4 articles that were not written by Associated Press and just reprinted in the local paper. So even the opinion pieces were written by the Associated Press. And when I noticed on the Elizabethan Star, which is, if I'm not mistaken, owned by the Johnson City Press now.
They buy
it. They have opinion pieces that they run regularly that are very what we would call progressive, and it may just be that they're trying to expose people in Elizabethton to a different opinion.
I would say yes, but at the same time, if you pay attention to the Star, they run some very
I feel like they're
Billy
ideologically
Graham-esque.
driven.
It's very so like to say it's right on with the Johnson City Press is not complete, but I guess that's a good point though, because I never thought of that, because I'm used to the Elizabeth Star being very evangelical Christian oriented, like, because that was the market for so long. But I guess if they're starting to slip a little bit of
well, now it's all like I'm a local grandmother who's a concealed carry holder, and I love gun control, and I hate Donald Trump.
Like a fluff piece.
yeah. And that's kind of always what the opinion piece is. And it's never, they would have to have more opinion pieces that are more in line with, or submissions for that, more in line with the feeling of people who live here. Our area went 65 to 35% for Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
So that sentiment is not the popular sentiment in our area. And I appreciate that we should have that allowed. We should be able to hear from that grandma who's a concealed carrier, who hates Donald Trump and wants more gun control. But it kind of seems like that's always what we get, where that's not representative of the people who would be submitting their opinions to.
So you're saying like, yeah, I get you saying, because there's got to be a lot more people writing in that's like, well, no, I want more guns and we need 5 more terms of Trump.
I feel like that has to be the popular sentiment for our area.
But they're picking the other one.
And and they're not showing the one that would be the popular in most cases. I rarely see anything like that when I read the opinion pieces. It's usually a.
Do you think they're balancing it out with all those Billy Graham? Like they post a lot of Billy Graham.
No, they could be, but Billy Graham.
Maybe that's just online though. Maybe I'm misrepresenting that, because I don't ever pick up just the Elizabeth and Star or something like that. I always just click on like their
I don't
pages.
ever read Billy Graham, so how much does he?
Well, what I'm saying is like it's just like what I find so odd about it is not odd, expected, is you'll see like it'll be like Elizabeth and Star sharing what Billy Graham thinks, and it's like because he's dead, so it's like a piece that he wrote a long time ago, or maybe it's Franklin Graham, but it's straight up just a religious piece about what Easter means to not Joel Osteen, but you get what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, I guess I don't care if that's in the paper, if that's what people are reading, but it's not news. It's literally just an opinion piece about what Christmas means to a Christian.
Yeah, I don't think that's, I'm talking more of the political opinion pieces. Yeah. That tends to be where it goes is the political.
Mm-hmm.
The progressive political persuasion.
I just wonder if they don't do that for a little rage click, like to get people to go.
And I certainly don't have problems with people voicing their views, whatever they are. I think that's one of the main reasons that I want to discuss this tonight, is because even though I've kind of found myself to be more of a minarchist to an anarchist.
Minarchist. I'm sleepy. Go ahead and explain that one.
Well, it's just a minimal amount of government.
Okay, I got you.
I think my ideal world would be an anarchical society where we didn't need government, but unfortunately that's kind of a little bit utopian, because I think it takes a liberal style of Western government to actually secure the freedom of everybody to be able to even create that society. So you can't just have an anarchical society in a vacuum, I don't think.
I would have to give you my opinion another time, because I feel like there's always an opposite to anything. So I feel like if there's going to be utopia somewhere else, it's going to cause a dystopia, kind of like a butterfly effect, or even just that whole. I don't know. I don't believe utopias are possible.
I think you're right.
As that sounds,
no, I think you're right. That actually utopia, if I'm not mistaken, means nowhere, and that's the actual meaning of it. So you can never really get to it. I think by definition.
I'm not saying you shouldn't strive to get.
No, it isn't. But
good living condition for everybody.
But I think one of the main things, even as an almost ANCAP / minarchist, the Constitution, even though some people say it hasn't been sufficient to protect us, because look where we are now, it's kind of all we got. It's kind of the only thing that's kept us
just
alive.
the oligarchy from taking over completely.
I think so. Yeah, it's the only thing that has protected us. Our republic is that Constitution, and it's mostly overrun. I mean, you could go through the amendments and you could easily show how each one is no longer from with the Patriot Act knocks out a whole bunch of them from the First Amendment to the 10th Amendment right off the bat. Mm-hmm. And you could argue, and I would, that the NFA, the Machine Gun Control Act, that violates the Second Amendment. So pretty much all the amendments have been violated in some way, but if your rights are violated and it does happen to fall under one of those amendments, you can sue and can win, and that does keep some entities from violating those rights as aggressively as they otherwise would. So I do want to start by saying that the First Amendment is considered the most important. That's why it was the first one. The freedom of the press is one of the largest parts of that. And that not only includes reporting the news, but that also includes asking questions about what's in the news. That includes asking questions and holding our public servants and our administrative servants to account. And I feel like a lot of that hasn't been getting done, especially during the COVID-19 pandemic. I feel like a lot of money has gone to a lot of news stations from a lot of pharmaceutical industries and a lot of local medical groups. Ours pretty much was pretty much taken over or bought out by the Mountain States Health Alliance, which became Ballard.
Well, you know that name was just, he took his R out. The main dude over Ballard was Ballard.
Yep.
He's arrogant, man.
Yep, I agree. And you know, after we stood up for Wellmont, you know, we had everybody in our area saying we need Wellmont, fight for Wellmont so we can keep these hospitals open, so we can have emergency rooms, so we don't have to fly people, you know, from all the way to the medical center from way over here. We need this hospital. Wellmont, everybody stood with Wellmont, and then what does Wellmont do? They sold out to fucking Mountain States as soon as they got all their fucking money. Then created the Ballard Medical Group, whatever the hell they're called. But Ballard then spends a lot of money in local advertising. And they all have made bukus and bukus of money. Okay, first of all, you have to look at when the pandemic shut everything down. They shut the hospitals down too for elective procedures. They shut down people going in for their cancer treatments, for the radiation. They shut down people going in for regular maternity screenings, regular surgeries, replaced hips, shoulders. They had people reschedule all that crap. And guess what? The hospitals were mostly empty while that happened. So guess what the hospitals did? Almost anybody who came through who had that magic word, whether they were in there for that, if they had that test run on them and they got a positive test for that magic word, if they were in there for that or not, that was what they got the money for. And especially if they hooked people up to the breathing machines. I don't want to say the word because it may trigger the thing, but you know what I'm talking about. Then they got a lot of extra money. So it was almost like that was the national protocol, and there was no other thing allowed to be talked about, and in the medical system. Okay, then you had Pfizer comes along, and Moderna, who has a lot of the same ownership. A lot of them funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. A lot of them funded.
Did Moderna get Gates money?
Yep, they sure did.
Did they? Okay.
Yeah.
I never looked into that part.
So all this money's coming from the same people, going to these people, and they're telling us that the only option. Now these hospitals around here. I'm sorry. I'm trying to keep this coherent, but the hospitals in our area. We're getting more money for coding people for the magic word, and that was kind of the case all over the place, right? So that's how they made up their lost revenue for having pretty much shut down and not doing all the elective procedures, is by using that magic word to recover the revenue when, you know, that person became deceased. So a lot of these local hospitals, I mean, all across the country, this happened, and they have an incentive because they spend a lot of money on local or local news media to have favorable coverage of them.
You think anybody would argue, as me playing devil's advocate, that Ballard runs, and for the people that watch it, I know they know, but for anybody that might not be from around here, billboards, Facebook ads, YouTube ads, it's everywhere all the time, and I wonder how much of that was the fact that they had people protesting outside till they had the Kingsport government make it illegal for them to do so.
Yeah, well, they tried to, yeah, when that Danny, what was her name?
Gosh. It's I'm sorry, guys. And before anybody gives me hell about this, because y'all did, remember that time there were a couple of old ladies hanging out in front of Holston and saying, hey, these people are doing some bad stuff, and I went down there and played some music for one day because I felt bad for them because they were protesting them shutting down.
Was her name Danny?
It's Danny. If anybody's interested, it's the Rantings of Danny is her Instagram account, and the other one's Kathy Christian. Those are the two main people that were down there. There was quite a few people that kept that little Occupy thing going there for a while. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not into a lot of public displays and stuff, but it's weird when you start shutting down emergency rooms for babies. It's just weird. And the reason Danny was so invested in it is because her granddaughter literally wouldn't have made it if that NICU hadn't been there. I think it was 3 or 5 years ago, right? So, because what happened was her granddaughter had complications, and they would have had to drive her hours away or helicopter lift her, and she would have died. And so she felt personally, motivated to go out there and sit on the edge of one side of the road, And so anyway, yeah. So Ballard was strip mining the healthcare industry around here, just trying to save money, like peeling back everything just to really try to save money. And the nurses were upset about it, and it just really bugged me that a lot of the right-leaning people, just because it was the Democrats that were protesting it, they automatically would run by and scream retard at them and stuff. So y'all were wrong on that one, but anyway.
Yeah, it's a damn shame.
Should have got behind them. They were right.
Yeah, and it was really funny. I had to, right when the COVID-19 precautions started being taken, I had to take my daughter or my wife or somebody to the urgent care, and I went there, and we got to the waiting room. It was a waiting room, probably a 40-foot long waiting room, right? Probably 40 by 12 or something like that. So good length, fairly good width. They had half of the waiting room cut off. Half the waiting room cut off due to COVID-19 precautions. So there was less areas for people to sit in. So this is the kind of geniuses we have
running
over
Appalachia's
there.
Main hospital. Well, our part of Appalachia anyway. So.
Yeah, no, we do have some. I know there's good folks out there.
There are good doctors. There's good nurses. I'm not taking a dump on anybody in the facilities doing their jobs. I'm taking a dump on the people who bought it and then gave them less supplies and a more stressful work environment at the cost of saying it's your story.
Yeah, they told them they couldn't
they're not
smoke,
listening.
right?
So.
was that before Ballard? They told them the healthcare workers couldn't smoke even on their own time. They have to have nicotine tests.
They'd be in their car and all that stuff.
No, they can't smoke at all.
Oh,
now.
even in the car. Okay.
They have nicotine tests, and
it's
they'll lose their job if they ingest nicotine. I think that was after they became Ballard. It could have been while they were still
super
Mountain
stressed
States.
out people, and you need them to come off nicotine. That's barbaric, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's awful. And then that's I'm sure I haven't heard about Ballard wanting them to get the juice.
Well, they're profit oriented. That's all they care about. So I'm sure.
I do know.
Mandates.
Well,
I'm pretty sure they will, because in order to get it, you have to have your Medicare and your Medicaid and all that stuff. It's probably linked to the hospital
that's what
being
I'm saying.
compliant.
I don't know about the
mandate.
the CNAs and all those people, but I do know that the higher ups, at least in that organization, or the mid-level management, I should say, not necessarily the higher ups, but the mid-level administration, they do have to take it because I knew someone who this person, I won't say anymore. I've already said too much. But
I'm only here to defend the healthcare workers.
Well,
that's all it was, because I felt like a lot of they got the rug pulled out from under. They had all their help and all their supplies and all the stuff ripped away from them.
And now they're forced to they're forced to take the magic juice, the unholy Eucharist, that is largely ineffective at what it's supposed to be, and I'm seeing more evidence that it is very harmful. And you can look that up. I would Google it if you're considering doing it. If you're having to do it for work, I would definitely look up medical and religious exemptions and at least look into it before you just do it because your work makes you to. If you decide it's the best thing for you, if you talk to your doctor and decide it's the best thing for you, then fine. But if you look it up,
I'm not anti-vax. I just really am against
I'm not either.
Anything. That's all it is. I don't like the idea of forcing people to do something.
Well, the main thing is the other ones that we had before. There were issues with them. I could get started on those. I have a whole personal story that I'll probably wait until we're not on YouTube to share about that. But I can tell you, with the traditional childhood inoculations, when you get those, whether there are problems with them or not, whether they are contaminated or have side effects, you do not get the disease that you are being inoculated against. Okay? And when you're going overseas and you're taking inoculations to visit a foreign country, those will work, and you will not get. You may get a headache, you may get a fever for a couple of days, but you will get over there, and you won't get the dengue fever. Or
I had to take something to go to somewhere I don't remember now, but it was like a series of like stuff. I don't remember what it was.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, there's certain places when you were going. I'm wanting to say it was Belize, because that was during. Well, there's all kinds of
all the Central American countries, you have a whole range of diseases that you want to get vaccinated for, and that makes sense. And when you get vaccinated for them, you don't get those viruses and diseases when you go down there. So that's number one. Number two, you also don't spread those viruses and diseases when you go down there. So and after you get past that, I think the main reasoning for people who continue to insist on mandating these things is that they lessen the symptoms, so we don't want to overwhelm the hospitals.
You talking about for COVID or all the?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Because what is the one that I can't remember? I know you have to have like malaria. That's what I had to take. It was malaria you had to take because of all the. We went during the what was it that was going on in Belize there for a while? Wasn't SARS? It was the Zika.
Zika virus.
We went down to Zika, and I may have told you this. I repeat myself a whole lot.
Me too, bro.
There was this big red thing when you first got off the. We went cruise. Cruise is cheap. The map was red, right? This big red. Beware the Zika virus. But then when we got into the mainland part, the ladies that were taking us on tours and stuff like that were laughing about it. She said it's only on the edge where all the moisture is, because the elevation and the moisture gets to a point where there's just no mosquitoes where we were. And I thought that was funny. We went on this rigmarole in the part of Belize who didn't have mosquitoes. All right.
Well,
we're getting into GamerGate.
Well, not quite yet, but we do need to move along because we've been on about an hour now, and I do want to kind of wrap up my thoughts for this.
Okay.
We're kind of taking a little journey. I like where we're going, but I do want to get back to Pfizer right quick. And if you look this weekend, the CEO of Pfizer has been in the news because he's been saying that there are dark forces after Pfizer making claims about them, and that he is in contact with the CIA and the FBI, and that these people talking bad about their inoculation are criminals. But I wanted to show you real quick the largest healthcare fraud settlement in history. This is the largest criminal fraud settlement in history from Pfizer in 2009 of $2.3 billion for fraudulent marketing. And
marketing, okay.
Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff like that. They've paid a lot of big fines, a lot of different settlements. So that's pretty rich for him to call people criminals who are talking about their fine product.
There's $1,100.
Hey, we're getting a chat here from Vacant Josh. What's up? That's the Reverend Crash. Glad to see you tuning in, buddy. Appreciate you checking us out.
It's $1,000.
I hope we haven't lost you. We kind of been all over the place a little bit. Yeah,
That's
he said
funny,
it must have been $100. Can we even read the thing?
Yeah, I can see it on there. It says must have been a $100 Thailand trip.
Referring to your vaccinations, I hope you got all those shots, Tim. especially if you were going to Thailand.
I don't remember if I had to have it. I think it was specifically malaria for Belize and something else, but I don't remember. You gotta get shots and stuff. That's why.
Yeah, if you leave the country,
really hypocritical if I'm going to sit here and say anti-vax because I've got a lot of crap in me because we've been so many places. So I'm not anti-vax. I'm anti-shady dealings and people doing shady tactics.
Yes.
And this is what Cliff's bringing up because most of what he's talking about, I didn't know any of this. Any of these dollar signs and stuff that he's talking about.
Well, I just thought those were interesting things to prove the point that I kind of already had. So I'm going into this with a bias because this is what it looks like to me as I am a regular consumer of news media and information.
Yeah. And just so y'all know, first thing I have to do is go home and start having like a counter argument for all the money because that's just the way I have to do it because if somebody presents a good case on either side, it's like my tendency is to automatically try to play devil's advocate.
Well,
it looks like you're leaning on that live. It's a head.
Well, the main thing I'm getting at is a lot of this money in our local news media comes from Pfizer. Brought to you by Pfizer. Brought to you by Pfizer. And that's we see a lot of that through Vanguard. We see a lot of that through Pfizer. We see a lot of that through Ballad. We see a lot of that through our local media. We see pieces in. If you read some of the online pieces for WJHL, they're trying to scare you to death, and vaccination is the only answer. Now, I'm all for you doing that if that's what you decide's for you. But there's a lot of other things that are being talked about and are working, or people say that are working. But, it's kind of like, I thought science was, we have an idea, let's test it and see if it's working. But now
supposed to be
science
a method.
is...
It wasn't science.
Now
it was
science
the
is...
scientific method.
This is the science. This guy over here's got another idea. Shut him up! Shut him up! Shut him up! Don't let him on YouTube. Don't let him on, pull him off the internet. He could confuse people. We don't want people seeing, and we see the media even saying things like critical thinking is bad, and critical thinking is a right-wing thing, and critical thinking is white supremacist, and critical thinking is a fascist.
It's like,
quality.
I don't like. I'm always paying attention to like language, and I know there's a whole like paranoid thing. Language is used to control people. I don't know. I'm a hayseed, so I don't really know too much.
Well, we
language.
think in language. If you in 1984
but,
was all about
that. Well, there's the idea that thought has to predate language, though.
Well, yes, but continue. Go ahead. Don't get off on that.
No. And so language fascinates me. What was my point? What was I getting into? What was I just talking about before I started going down to thought predating language? Language controls us,
yes.
Right? And I don't like how they're starting to say science like it's... when we were in elementary school, remember it was the scientific method?
Yeah.
Remember? And you had to remember, it's like, what was it, 7 steps?
Yeah.
Not a scientist.
Francis Bacon, baby.
7 steps, right?
Yeah.
And it's not that anymore. Now it's... science because of science, and now you'll see people post
trust the science.
Well, you'll see people post stuff that's not even science.
No,
they'll say, "Oh, this because of science," and it's like, no, not because of science, because a whole lot of complicated stuff that you didn't explain. And I'm pretty sure you don't know how to explain it.
Saying science is not a substitute for actual science, and Let me lean my head back on this live.
It's scientific method. That was the whole thing I was talking about. Like, and I'm not. It's a weird one because I'm not a scientist, but I really think we need to go back to the idea of the scientific method instead of saying science, because the idea of science is getting put on everything.
Well, my point is science is not possible if opposing viewpoints are not allowed. And you got YouTube.
Science is impossible if you're not using the scientific method too. If
Right.
You're just saying science.
Part of using the scientific method is being allowed to try people's hypotheses and set up experiments to prove them. But when those people try to do that and they bring it to the table, they're automatically censored because they are opposing the mainstream science viewpoint. It's like Galileo, man. He was, all the scientists of his time were telling him he was wrong. Copernicus. All the scientists of his time were telling him that he was wrong. Oh, no, the world doesn't revolve around,
Y'all can convince me of some pretty stupid shit if you try.
But that's another thing that kind of gets me about the flat Earth people is, like, one of the reasons that Galileo was able to prove that the Earth was round is, we'll say prove that the Earth was round.
With an experiment.
Well, he looked at Jupiter, and he looked at the moons of Jupiter, and he saw that the round body with his telescope, that was a new invention.
What year was this?
This was in the 1600s.
You could build a telescope in the 1600s that could see Jupiter?
Yeah. He couldn't really see it great, but he could see that it was a round body, and he could see Jupiter's moons. You can see.
That's where the flat earthers start flipping out, though. You see that?
Well, you can see that if you have a backyard telescope. If you even have a $100 backyard telescope with a 3.5-inch refractor or a 4.5-inch reflector telescope, you can get a nice crisp image of Jupiter. It's out right now. You can go out there and shine it up, set that thing up and look at it. You can see plain as day that Jupiter.
Well, another good explanation would be that they just had way better telescopes than we accept.
Well, they didn't have great telescopes. His images would not have been very good. I think he had about a 2-inch reflector telescope, or maybe even less than that. So he couldn't collect a lot of light with that. But he could. I
think he had a computer. Go ahead. This is for another episode. Go ahead.
He could collect enough to see that Jupiter was round and had its moons go around.
Probably had some kind of version of a GoPro and an Icon too.
But that's how he proved. That's how he proved that the Earth was round, or that the Earth that the world didn't revolve around the Earth, because these moons, he tracked them, Calypso, Ganymede, Io, and I can't remember the other one, but he tracked these moons around Jupiter and showed that they didn't rotate around the Earth. They were the devil. I'm just going
to let you have this one. I'm really having a hard time seeing those.
But when he did this, it was the accepted notion that the Earth was the center of the universe, that all the stars, the moon, the sun, they all traveled around the Earth, and that's how we got our kind of man-centric view. And Galileo showed that wasn't the case. It pretty much was the same situation. So with all our enlightenment today, we're pretty much in the same situation we were 500 years ago when Galileo showed that the established order was not telling the truth about the way the world worked. So we're still in the same situation because we get shouted down just like Galileo if we oppose that. And we had a nice free period during the early 2000s, 2010s, where the internet really was the Wild West. You could spread content, you could share information, and they really don't like that. The powers that be, they being the World Economic Forum types, the Bill Gates types, the billionaire classes, the big investors in Vanguard and BlackRock and Blackstone and the central bank system. Now, those guys all own a lot of Pfizer, and they all own a lot of news media. And as we get into the rest of the story tonight, we talked about GamerGate. I don't know if you heard a lot about GamerGate, but some people...
to internet peeps, it's a meme at this point.
Yeah, go ahead and just give us a quick rundown.
Well, I don't know if I can give you a quick rundown of it, just because I feel like we need to... I'm going to give you two sides of it, because I don't know... People have different sides of GamerGate. That I was not involved in GamerGate, obviously, because I'm not much of a gamer. But I was watching the streaming community that kind of got sucked into it. And do you know Sargon of Akkad?
Yeah.
How he
Carl Benjamin.
Yeah, he jumped into it. But there was a couple of other YouTubers that didn't get the national attention that he did. Most notably would be a YouTuber streamer. I call it streamer because he wasn't on YouTube. Was a guy named Mr. Mediker. He got out of the GamerGate one because he realized that a lot of people that were involved in it were just using it to try to advance their streaming careers because of the hot button issue. But shout out, he's not dead. In case anybody's wondering, that's funny because he recently started streaming again. Not a Medicare fan. Just putting the info out there. If you are a Gem fan, you can now start listening to him again. Gamergate, if you want to boil it down to two different sides of it, what most people thought Gamergate was teenage, or well, I was like drama and like a love triangle.
That's definitely what I thought.
And that sort of stuff. But if you really want me to break it down into a quick structure, there were people who wanted to put more, we'll call it woke, just because it's appropriate, more woke stuff into video games, but they knew that the video game community would reject it because they didn't like it. And so the person that ended up getting better reviews for games that people would not have otherwise liked, but because somebody was sleeping with one of the gamers.
So it was a game designer. And he said that his girlfriend was also a game designer and that she was sleeping with game reviewers in exchange for positive reviews of her content, which did include, some of the more woke stuff, which gamers weren't into. Okay, so that kind of started the whole controversy.
But that's where most people thought it stopped. They thought it just ended there.
Right. But as we read on Quite Frankly TV, the blog there written by John Carroll, Quite Frankly, is a great channel. He's on YouTube, but a lot of times he gets kicked off, so you might be better off following him at Quite Frankly TV or quitefrankly.tv. But if you enjoy our kind of content, you'll enjoy him. He's on every weeknight at 7. But for his blog, this is written by John Carroll. It's called GamerGate, The Shot Heard Round the World. And it kind of goes over the whole thing. And as we go through John Carroll's work, we find out that... we get this back and forth between the gamers and the media saying that the gamers are just a bunch of...
QAnon is the derogatory word for them.
Yeah, a bunch of... this was before QAnon, but the gamers are just a bunch of misogynists. And...
Well, the GamerGate got sucked into it. Like, there's a streamer, Nerdrotic, Hill versus Babyface, and a couple other ones. I have a good memory. I don't actively watch gamers. But they got sucked into it because that was their world. Like, they just like board games and video games and all this bunch of stuff, and they kind of got sucked into it because they weren't taking necessarily a side, and so they were forced to. And that started this idea that gamers are what put Trump into office, which is not true.
Well,
it's just one of the bricks
maybe
in the wall.
One of the main aspects.
It's one of the bricks in the wall that put Trump in office.
So I'm going to go ahead and read a little bit of this to you, and just a couple of sections here. Like, in August 2014, the gamer published a blog in which he accused his ex-girlfriend, herself an amateur game developer, of cheating on him. He alleged that her behavior was part of a quid pro quo, where she traded sex with gaming journalists in return for positive coverage. As the story spread and the gamers began voicing concerns about a lack of integrity in the industry, they were suddenly met with a shocking level of vitriol, lies, censorship, and organization. Honest and fair questions were treated as sexist harassment and reciprocated with insults, and discussions of the scandal were ruthlessly suppressed online. But then the gamers did something that the powers that be did not expect. They fought back.
And of course they used Ready Player One, which is... Maybe we can start tearing apart movies and stuff later.
We'll have to. It quickly became apparent that the group was unlike anything militant leftism had engaged before. Already treated as outcast by society, the gamers were impervious to the threats or shaming tactics that had always forced others to cave. Even worse, nobody could figure out where to find them or who they were. The network of gamers was leaderless and anonymous, a phantom menace that forced the enemy to publicly double down. This posed a huge problem, and the only card the gaming media had to play was to continue lying.
Some of this isn't true. I'll correct it, but go ahead.
Okay. But lie they did, and as an army of feminist journalists from the gaming, now political media entered the fray, every last one of them had their feelings hurt in ways they never could have imagined.
Okay, they're writing it in funny. I get you now.
Yeah.
They
labeled themselves as victims and martyrs, eventually taking the case all the way to the United Nations. Seriously. The wave of death threats they received was promptly investigated by the FBI, but even that organization, rotten to the core and with a penchant for political witch hunts, came up with nothing. One of the more hilarious aspects of the whole fiasco was that many gamers weren't ideologically driven or even that motivated. Oftentimes, the histrionic women simply fished for opinions they knew would upset them, then became upset after said opinions were received, thus furthering the number of harassment claims. It was the feminists themselves, not the gamers, who eventually crafted the feminists versus gamers narrative in the media. And there they actually did go to the UN, and there you can see that's a pretty good meme about it there. Her throwing her opinions into the internet and getting them tossed back at her.
Milo Yiannopoulos. I've not seen that name in a while.
Well, I'll tell you what Milo.
Is he back in the media?
What Milo found out. No, this is an old story back, but Milo did talk about this in 2015. He dug up that. Well, and this was no, actually, this was Sargon of Akkad that dug this up that you talked about earlier. Carl Benjamin from the UK.
Who, by the way, I will comment on another time.
He linked. See, Yiannopoulos published the names found on Game Journos Pro, which was a mailing list of 150 game journalists and industry leaders that were connected to these outlets that were they were all sending out the same thing basically. So there was organized. All these game blogs and game websites were getting these opinions from the Game Journo Pros. Well, the Game Journo Pros, as we learn a little bit more, Sargon of Akkad found that there was an international think tank called Digital Games Research Association, who had provided, they'd previously promoted academic papers on how to use critical theory, yes, Marxist critical theory, to deconstruct the identity of the gamer, which academia described as straight white male. And these same papers were then decided by the gamers are dead pieces.
So inaccurate.
The chart. What? Tell me what's inaccurate about?
Straight white male.
Oh, you mean that's
the
who
gamers
plays games.
are not straight white male. It's very diverse.
Right.
You can go to, like right now. I can hop on. Right now I can go home, and the only game I've got that really plays online would be if I updated Gears of War. And right now, if you go on there, you can choose rooms. Pretty much go into a room based on what language you want. And there's a very large amount of Spanish speaking. There's Korean. There's just a giant group of gamers out there.
Well, we're going to get into that.
And not to mention the fact that there's such a gigantic amount of just like whole groups.
First, you have to remember that this is back in the
zero black gamers, by the way, not a single
think tech
black gamer. They don't exist.
Yeah, if you play Call of Duty, you'll know there's no black gamers. But this DIGRA, Digital Games Research Association, they felt like that they needed to make games more inclusive, right? So they were promoting a lot of this. Well, when Sargon of Akkad released what he had found out about this, they followed some of the money back to, guess who? The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. That's right. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation didn't just bankroll the development of what became known as... so DIGRA, let me just read this part to you right here, and then we'll go on to the next part. They found that the social deconstruction of gamer identity was done to make video games more attractive to people of all backgrounds, so to get a larger segment of the population playing them. Once this was achieved, video games were set to become an important component of Common Core, the agenda to force working-class Americans onto a single education standard. Now, our education used to be, you had kind of state standards for what were expected, but everything was free up to the schools, and then eventually the state started running everything. Eventually the feds started running everything, and our schools got worse and worse, but we did educate more people. So we go on to the Common Core, funded by, it was being pushed by DIGRA because they wanted to use DIGRA in Common Core. And Common Core is being funded by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, and also they were funding the DIGRA. So, what is this what to do with anything? Well, we see today we have the Metaverse being announced from Facebook.
Who owns Oculus?
Right. Facebook is if you missed it, I haven't been on Facebook, but I couldn't even miss it. I occasionally go on for my kids' school and stuff, because that's oddly enough the only way that they
There's certain
communicate
things you
some
have
things.
to have something
Yeah.
Facebook's fun for, unfortunately.
So,
don't have to, but parents probably do.
well, where I'm getting with all this, if it's kind of been a rambling road, I have been
As
a
it
little,
always will be.
yeah, I have kind of been all over the place. But what I'm trying to point out to you is the
scaffolding, I think you'd call it.
The metaverse is being set up, and there was an article, I wish I'd pulled it up, about the metaverse is not a win, or not a thing, but it's a time.
A timeline?
Yeah, it's not. It's not a place. It's not a thing. It's a time.
Well, have you seen the ad they have on Facebook? When you go to, maybe even YouTube right now, if you go to it, it's like this family, and they step into a painting of like all these like jungle creatures and stuff that come to life, and it's pretty polygonal animation, a little bit better than like Banjo-Kazooie and N64 stuff, pretty smooth, you know. But even that, like, it's a pretty big step for people to step into. I think people get lost in it.
Let me pull this up for everybody real quick. We got Sean Paru on Twitter here saying, hot take, everyone is wrong about the metaverse. Here's my 3-part theory. Most people think the metaverse is a virtual place, like in the movie Ready Player One. A virtual world like Minecraft, Roblox, or Zuck showed in the Facebook demo yesterday. But what if it's not a place? What if it's a time? A time? What the... Yes, a moment in time. You know, in artificial intelligence, there's an idea of the singularity. Mm-hmm. It's a movement in time where AI becomes smarter than humans. The moment where artificial intelligence is greater than human intelligence. The metaverse is the moment in time where our digital life is worth more to us than physical life. This is not an overnight change. Our invention, or an invention by some Steve Jobs types. It's a gradual change that's been happening for 20 years. Every important part of life is going digital. Work, from factories to laptops, boardrooms to Zooms, friends.
As a musician, 60% of everything that I'm doing is online. Mm-hmm. And it has to be. It's by design now. That if you're not online, you're invisible.
Your friends, from neighbors to followers. Where do you find like-minded people? Twitter, Reddit, etc. Games. More kids play Fortnite than basketball and football combined. But I got to say, took the kid to basketball practice the other night. It was freaking awesome to see all these kids out there just running in the gym and, hitting each other, running,
Playing.
Yeah, just playing. It was great. And there was a bunch of them. And there was like 15 kids on each team. So they had a lot of kids sign up. So that was a good thing. I was glad to see that. But identity, filters are the new makeup. Stories are your personal billboard to broadcast who you are. What matters more? What you look like in real life or what you look like on Instagram? Everything goes digital. Your friends, your job, your identity, and now with crypto, your assets are online too. Bored apes are the new Rolex, favorite skins or the new skinny jeans. If everyone hangs out online all the time, then your flexes need to be digital. So if you play this forward another 10, 20 years, we'll cross into the metaverse. The moment in time where digital matters more to us than physical. Our attention used to be 99% on the physical environment.
The best money we've ever had. Sorry.
Yeah, I get that all the time. A metal card from crypto.com. Our attention used to be 99% on physical environment. And TVs dropped that to 85%, computers down to 70%, phones down to 50%, and where attention goes, energy flows. And 50% of our attention is on our digital screen, then 50% of our energy will go to our digital life. Today it takes some effort to take our phone out of our pocket and look at it. So
it's going to go in us.
Some company will take smart glasses and send them, which they already have. Google Glass.
I swear to God, that's why they made it so slippery and big for your pocket.
Yeah.
They want it to fall. I swear to God, that's what it is.
You drop it like crazy, dude.
I've already cracked it.
Oh, man.
It took me years to crack the other one because it was this much shorter. It stayed in your pocket. Now, if I run up the stairs too quick, 4 stairs at my house, it flies out of my back pocket. I've dropped this thing, and I know it's a stupid theory, but feel that and tell me that's not the slipperiest. It's the slipperiest substance you could use to make a phone. And you can't not have it.
Yeah,
because if you take the damn case off, it's twice as slippery.
Oh, yeah. Oh, but they sure do look sexy without that case on.
It bugs me, man.
Don't take it off. You're going to drop it on my damn cement floor, and I'm going to feel bad because
it's
you broke your
broke.
phone in my house. but yeah, you saw those. I couldn't find it. I was trying to find it to pull it up for this segment here. But there was a video I saw years ago of a lady who was demoing the Google Glass, the smart glasses.
Is that the spot glass?
Yeah,
data
and when
glasses?
she was going around and people were asking her, what the hell's on your head? What are you doing there? And she'd tell them to Google Glass, get the fuck away from me. Get the fuck out of here.
You're recording.
Hitting her, yeah.
Yeah, you can record with it.
Yeah. Nobody would do that now, would they?
No.
You would see those things out of here.
Well, think of how what an advantage that would be for these Uber or Lyft cops. If everybody's just recording each other all the time, everybody's accountable all the time, which is...
I mean, I guess there's some
job. But good Lord, can you imagine having to be accountable because you're going to Subway to get a sandwich and what you do from point A to point B is being recorded? You just walking to get a sandwich.
And that's part of the social credit system that we talked about on the Great Reset episode, and that's part of what we're finishing up with tonight, because as we saw from the take on whether you agree with the take on the GamerGate article or not, I think the important part is that there's money going to getting people into games. There's money going to from the same people. There's money going into all the media. There's money going into all the pharmaceutical companies, which is going back into the media, which is owned by the tech company. They all own shares of one another. You'll find Vanguard in tech. You'll find tech in Pfizer. You'll find Pfizer in tech. All intertwined. Okay, so all these guys own every piece of information that you get to see, except for stuff like this that Tim and I are bringing to you tonight. And stuff that
they own this as soon as we post it.
Yeah, but there's all kinds of other independent content creators. And like I said on the last episode, we may not get everything, but we will get some things. And there's other people out there that will get some things. And we will make it through the information blockade. The information will get out there. And what I'm trying to show you tonight is that they want us all getting the same information. I think they want us all in this metaverse. I think they want us living very little of our lives in the physical world. I think they want us spending most of it in the digital world. And I think they want us to be under this system that we talked about with the Great Reset. I think that's a part of it. This is where we end up if we let this Great Reset go through, is living in the metaverse. I think that's why the metaverse has been created, because when the economy shuts down, then the only place that you can get your food is from the government, and the only place that you can get anything,
like because people automatically, it would be a knee-jerk thing for Americans to get their food from the government, like if the government rolled up and gave you a sandwich, door to door. So I guess what I'm saying there is, like, it's not going to be the government with Taco Bell. It's going to be DoorDash and stuff like that. But you have to use it.
That's be the only way. Yeah, exactly. You're picking down what I'm putting. Picking up what I'm putting down too. But if you want that, that's why they want that. That's why they want this Vax passport, in my opinion, so bad. Is because they want this global reset, where first, if you haven't noticed, everything is going through the roof. Prices for fuel, food, turkeys have doubled since last year. The prices of food, everything is going up. If you haven't noticed that, you haven't bought anything in a long time.
Tickets.
Yeah.
I've heard people complaining about that online.
Well, regardless.
I think that's probably just swelling.
Everything's going up.
They're poking the tourists that
the economy is getting in bad shape. We hear lots of talk about this Great Reset. Lots of talk about a dark winter. So I hope you guys are ready. I hope you are able to take care of yourself. Because part of the Great Reset involves bringing us to where we have to sign on to this thing and get this digital ID in order to get food, in order to work, in order to do anything. They want you to have this thing. And eventually I think they want you to get basically this universal basic income is not going to come from the government directly necessarily. It's going to be from Facebook. It's going to be from Twitter. It's going to be from Tesla.
Give you a little bit of money for promoting stuff on here.
Yeah, I think that's what we're pushing towards.
I don't know. We were using Yang to build up UBI, who was on the right.
Yeah.
And then he went for Biden, so it was like a turncoat sort of thing. So I think they were using him to get the idea out there and put him on the other side, though.
Oh yeah, right. I got you.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, if you notice, we've seen a lot of that because we see a lot of the people on the left now talking about, oh, it's a private company, jackass.
It's like they
switched over the last 10 years.
Like you get Yang to get the Republicans to agree to universal basic income, which is a lefty idea. They were already okay with it, so you don't need these people preaching.
Well, if you noticed, like Obamacare, for example, Rudy Giuliani had the same idea 4 years earlier.
He wrote it, I'm pretty sure, didn't he? Like they even say that.
Mitt Romney, I think, is the one it was modeled after, his Massachusetts model. But Rudy Giuliani and I think Fred Thompson from Tennessee were both talking about it in the debates in 2008 as far as giving people a healthcare
was in debate
tax
since I was
credit.
A kid.
Yeah, so they were going to give you a tax credit to buy healthcare from the federal government. So that's essentially what Obamacare was, or the Affordable Care Act. Anyway, I think we're about to the end of the road tonight. But I basically wanted to show you that all the media that you see, including our local media, they kind of go with the same. They have the same people pulling their strings. They have the same money funding them. They are not going to go against that. They're going to bring you disinformation if that's what they're told to bring you. They're going to bring you whatever. So the fact is, you've got to go out there and look for yourself. Critical thinking is a good thing. We should strive to teach our children critical thinking. We should strive to be critical thinkers. And if that means telling me that I'm full of shit, then tell me I'm full of shit. But at least listen to what I had to say and don't just listen to the
Talking heads?
Talking heads, yeah. I mean, Sarah Diamond's a nice lady, but she's just reading a script that somebody else gave her. And remember what the real world is. Make yourself be able to survive in the real world. Make yourself ready. I really think that things are going to get worse here.
I swallowed a white pill by mistake the other day. I'm sorry.
Well, no, I am white pilled. I'm hugely white pilled. But I do feel like that in order for the Great Reset to happen, things are going to have to get a lot worse to get people to get signed on to it.
2 more years of, you know what I'm saying? So.
Yeah. People in our area in particular are not signed on to this thing yet. And I think in order for it to happen, they've got to make us hit rock bottom.
Do you think that all the stuff with like the meta, like essentially going into the Oasis is what they call it in Ready Player One,
Mm-hmm.
like the idea of the Oasis being the virtual reality world that we all live in as a second life, like does that exist if you stop the Great Reset? Because I think it exists no matter what. I think it's inevitable, whether Republicans or Democrats or lefties or righties, fascists, communists. I think the digital matrix that we're going to insert ourselves into because we want so bad to know what it's like to be Pikachu that we're going to do it. Because I mean, as mean as that sounds, there are people that think about this like from an ethical standpoint. Let's white pill ourselves here and imagine this isn't the
I'm so white pilled.
The demon. Let's imagine that this isn't the demon that's going to end everything, right? Imagine you are a trans person. And imagine how easy that would be for you to test that idea without going through surgeries if all you had to do was plug into a system, be exactly the way you wanted to be, and you could go, this is me. Or you could go, nope. You know what I'm saying? How easy that would be, like, because I'm not anti-trans, but there's this giant rate of people who regret the surgery, and I think they convinced them to do it. Now, that would be like, maybe I'm white pilling the Oasis, I don't know. But I think it's inevitable. I just think it's coming no matter what. I think that digital.
Well, it's kind of like when you're
huge cultural change. I just think we're on. That's the path we're on.
Kind of like our buddy Elon, and one of your beefs with him, if I'm not mistaken,
it's
was
faux beef. I have beef with everybody.
Well, you know, faux beef.
I have beef with everybody.
One of your faux beefs, and I really like the way that sounds. Faux beef.
Faux beef.
With
Elon. Impossible Burger.
Yeah, no, thank you. No, thank you.
I've not eaten one.
But one of your faux beefs with Elon was about how he talked about AI and how, well, we don't want AI because it's going to form some.
Don't create your own enemy.
Yeah, it's going to create some God system like Skynet that overruns us, and why would you do that? And he switched it up to, well, AI is going to be created. Well, we're going to have to join them.
Yeah, he flipped.
But I don't think he did. I think he said it's being created. I'll be devil's advocate on that.
So he's going to try to jump in. Okay.
I think he said it's being created with or without Elon Musk.
Okay.
I think, as Elon Musk, that I should work to create something that we can use to supplement ourselves to fight against the AI that they're creating. Now, is that not what he said to you, from your perspective?
I don't know necessarily from the idea that we're fighting. His whole idea was, if human beings are going to give birth to AI, maybe somebody who doesn't want to own everything should be the one to create it, so it's a little bit more controlled.
Yeah, that's a better way of saying it. Yeah.
And I agree with that. I don't want DARPA
no
being the
shit.
first ones to get a hold of mind control technology
shit.
and stuff like that.
Well, they've got it, dude. And everybody talks about MK
probably.
Ultra. MK Ultra is, 50 fucking years old.
I don't even think MK Ultra was about mind control. I think MK Ultra was more about just how to naturally control people, because people are pretty predictable. I mean, like, if you're pretty self-aware, you know exactly what you're doing.
Dude,
they can learn how to chime into just your little things.
Once you notice it, you know what I'm talking about, Tim. I'm sure you've seen it. When you watch movies, when you watch commercials, you can see the cues to ping your sexuality, to ping your insecurities.
Yeah, once you watch marketing and ads, and you realize that Bill Hicks was right, they're the devil.
Mm-hmm.
Marketing people are the worst. Sorry,
the fucking. Oh man, I'm cussing a lot.
Not just the guy that makes the images. I'm talking about like these people that will like hide a set of tits in like a Coke ice cube, or.
Have you ever noticed when you see a Coke bottle ad? You know, it's always like it shows a girl turning the bottle up, right? And it looks very provocative. She's turning the bottle up, and she's looking up at you from underneath the Coke bottle.
There's all kinds of them in there. And it's not even just the sexual ones. There's all kinds of, even like basic rules, like you have to put a frame around stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The way the words are supposed to go is the way your mind will read it. But then they'll start effing with you, and they'll start... and this is based, you can take this or leave it, folks. It's based in the idea of what's called sigil magic, and it goes back a really long time. Psychologists and marketers have learned that the idea that if you can trigger people's emotions using something like when you think of a McDonald's arch, a person that grew up eating McDonald's doesn't just see the golden arches. What they see is the golden arches, and then they smell what the French fries smell like. They know what the Coke tastes like after they've eaten a burger. There's all this nostalgic stuff that goes with it, so they've learned how to tap into stuff like that just to subtly make you do stuff. Case in point would be Disney pumps the smell of chocolate into locations where there's no food. Now, why would you do that? Why would you pump the smell of chocolate in an area
so
where you
run
can't...
to the place where there is food?
No. So you'll buy something else because you're so there's something about the smell of wanting something when you're in Disney, and that you'll buy. There's a chance you'll buy something else.
Okay.
That you might buy a vinyl figurine or something. And that's just, it doesn't work on you once you know the tricks that are doing it. That is so underhanded to do to people that don't know that you're messing with them.
There's another good story on the Quite Frankly blog about sigil magic and emojis. I thought this was pretty neat. So again, quitefrankly.tv.
Emojis are very heavily based in sexting too.
Yeah, these
That's a stupid fact.
if you look at these, I can really see where they're. This is the keys of the 72 emojis and the 72 demons of Solomon's Lesser Key.
I've not seen this. This is interesting.
Yeah,
okay.
pretty good. It's entitled "Crouching Emoji Hidden Demon" on the Quite Frankly blog, but it's pretty neat if you want to check that out.
Where's the pecker shooting sperm emoji on these 72 demons? I'll have to look that article up to see if there's any salt in there. See if it's has some weight.
It's interesting anyway.
Yeah.
Because if you look at those emojis, they really do kind of resemble just from what I looked at.
Well, yeah,
there.
like we were going through. I'll have to actually look at it.
Giving it a cursory glance, and if you were into reading stuff about Solomon, and his key and all that stuff.
This is Solomon's Key stuff, right?
Yeah.
This is linked to tarot also.
Okay.
So let's see. I got the demon face in a way, but you can kind of translate some of this stuff. Like if you look in here, you've got a cross, and then you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 dots. There's another ankh down here. I won't start getting too much into this. All this stuff means something. See here. This is essentially a swastika if you start looking at the pattern. People don't know about the swastika. It's a super ancient symbol, and it actually refers to, if you look at the Big Dipper, it goes this way, and if you just, Copernicus had his had his telescope with his DVR plugged into it that he had at the time. If you shoot it straight up, you can watch the Big Dipper as the seasons go. It turns like an L, and all 4 parts of the swastika are just the Big Dipper.
Okay.
Maybe it's one of those star constellations, and it represents. I don't kill you too much. All that star stuff is so benign. They're just tracking the stars,
let's get into that on another one. But I agree. It is.
We ruined a logo that had no. Well, Hitler ruined a logo that was otherwise found in churches, found in ancient stuff.
Yeah,
but anyway,
it was all over the place.
Yeah.
Before Hitler took it, it was.
It'd be like somebody ruining. It'd be like if people started wearing the rainbow and it became known for beheading people. Instead of flood and then gay.
Well, there's something to be said for that, because I've heard the idea that the rainbow flag is now a battle flag.
They've been screaming fight with that for a long
engaged in a
time.
different kind of warfare.
Is it going to be the gay army versus the straight army?
I don't think that's exactly how it'll pan out.
That's what they want.
But if you use the rainbow flag carriers as your vanguard, you can distract a lot of attention from your main attack if you're doing that.
I'm off topic. I'm gonna let you do what you're doing.
No,
I'm gonna keep pulling you.
Yeah, you're good at that, which is what makes our show interesting. Because if it were just me going on a straight rant,
well, you'd probably give a very concise point A to point B.
Well, I don't think the show would be as much fun though. I don't think as much people would watch it because, for one, I'm not as entertaining as having you interrupt me. But you're funny too, and I'm not really funny. I'm kind of more of a dry delivery kind of guy on here. I'm very charismatic in real life, I promise. I just don't do it so well for the camera. But
I make no claims to anything from me other than
to wind it down, though. I hope you will subscribe to this channel. If you are not subscribed, please do it. If you have not shared this with anybody that you know that you think might be into this kind of content, share it with them. Comment on the channel. Let us know what you think. If we fucked something up, tell us about it. If we're full of crap, tell us about it.
Full of crap, and you can feel free to tell me that, but that's kind of my safe
I try not to be full of crap, but sometimes I am. Sometimes I don't.
Full of crap, but full of love.
Sometimes I don't know what the hell I'm talking about, but most of the time I have a pretty good idea. If you have any ideas for shows for us, email us at theironmountainhour@gmail.com. I think we're going to do... I'm going to start doing some nighttime news streams, and Tim may join me on some of them. Some of the other ones he may not. But there's just so many stories that...
You find?
Yeah, I mean, there's so much crap I want to share with you guys. There's so much... I said you guys.
Just like little, like, y'all. We text each other, like, stories, and then we never share them on here because they're all little stepstones to
and
everything.
Dude, I've got so many shows already written. I've got a show on Al Capone. I've got a show... I'm going to do a show on the constitutional sheriff. We got a sheriff's race coming up next year. We got the mayor's race coming up, too. Those are going to be key...
See if we can get Danny and AC to come on.
Yeah, I would like to, actually. I would like to have some of them. I'd like to have some of the sheriff's sheriff's what you call it? Contestants. That's not the right word. Candidates. That's the word. The candidates for the sheriff race come on, because as we approach and go through the Great Reset, having a constitutional sheriff is going to be very important, especially if we look at things like gun control. We really need a constitutional sheriff in order to help us push that back. So, weigh in. Send us stuff to the ironmountainhour@gmail.com. I'll put a link to that email in the description. Tell us what you'd like to talk about on the next show. We've got an episode with Nibiru coming up with Jonathan and Dustin of Decade of Deceit. We're going to be talking about transhumanism. We'll probably talk about that in the same episode. I think we can kind of get to, because the theme of tonight leads into transhumanism. We're talking about going into the metaverse. We're talking about transcending our human body, because that's eventually what people like Ray Kurzweil said that they wanted to do. That's what people like Elon Musk even has talked about.
There's a bunch
doing.
of creepy people that
a lot of
aren't
people
been named. Like that one guy that goes by a series of letters who's been dead for a long time. He was like one of the predominant transhumanists. And my idea on that part is like they need the ant colony to build the oasis so they can have it, like because they want to attain the transhumanist status. And
some of these people think they're going to upload their consciousness.
This is what they think. This isn't us making shit up. This is what they're saying.
They think they're going to upload their consciousness into a computer and they're going to live forever, experiencing either through a robot experiencing the physical world that they inhabit with their consciousness, or that they're going to build a metaverse. I tend to think that, from what I understand, they're building the metaverse for us.
To keep track of it, or whatever.
To keep us in the metaverse while they experience the real world, and they want to have...
You think so?
I think so, yeah.
I don't know, man.
I think they want to experience the real world with robot
I guess we'll have to
bodies.
argue on that one next time, because I really do think that they want... I really don't think they want this world. I really do think that they want to
Do you?
I think they want to get in that digital world. Well, can you imagine, like otherkin, you know what that is? Like people that... It's like people who, like, for example, what's a good one? Like, they think they're a dragon. Like, they believe that they're a dragon, right? That's considered an otherkin or whatever.
Okay.
There's no way to surgically make yourself a dragon. That is the only, like, in order for you, if you...
Unless you saw that
you
South
are
Park,
a dragon...
where they turned dude into a dolphin. They turned him into a dolphin on South Park.
I'm just saying, like, if you are a dragon trapped in a human body, the only way to achieve that is to get into the oasis, right? And you really could be what you think you are or believe you are. But I think the creepy people are using these people's desires against them.
Right. Well, that's where that. Well, I think you're right, and I think that's where they want us. That's where they want us.
Build the oasis.
They want
you
to
can
build
be anything you want to.
Okay, they're building. They want to build a computer strong enough to hold their consciousness, so that they can go into
God.
a robot that will be a body for their consciousness to control, so they can experience the physical world while we're stuck in the metaverse.
They want to put us in the metaverse so they can also come in, because that's the only way they can really be God.
No, they could be God in the physical world if we're not there.
Because in the physical world, if right now, let's say, he who must not be named Soros or something like that decides he's going to wipe off a country or something, he actually has to send the military. If he's in the metaverse, he can go, by my hands, I strike
right,
me.
But what I'm
Soros
saying is
smash.
If we're all in the metaverse, he can still do that. And then,
they can just unplug you from...
Yeah, and then he can live in his computerized body, in his robotic body, that they can make whatever they want.
Mm-hmm.
If he wanted to be a dragon... I mean, he could pilot a predator drone around.
Yeah, well, I'm saying he wants to be the big man with the big white beard and the big dick spear. Is what I'm saying. And the guy down the street that wants to be a dragon, who has a girlfriend who is an elf, they're going to use their desire to fulfill what they feel they really are against them, because that's the only choice they got. Like, you can't become a dragon unless science really advances quite significantly.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
That's the only choice these poor people have, and they're going to stick it in there and use it against them.
That's why they want to trap us in the metaverse first, before their science...
I think it's those people, because me and you aren't getting in the metaverse. They're running headlong into it. So I think what's happening is a lot of us, I guess, no longer spring chicken middle-aged dudes, and, look, it's not going to be in the metaverse. She's barely on Facebook. She's got a career to take care of.
Yeah.
And so it's the generation below us. They're going to jump right into it.
Well, that's a good point. That it is aimed for the younger generation.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a bunch of 35-year-old people out there that are like, oh shit, my back hurts and I'd like a bigger dick. Let's get into the metaverse so I can, so I can be Hakeem Olajuwon or something like that and dunk some basketballs. You know what I'm saying? There's going to be that, but there's a greater number of the younger crowd that's more receptive to it that also, I don't know, man. I'm all for it, but at the same time, I really think it's being used against them. That's all.
I do too. I think we just disagree maybe on what the ultimate outcome of the
We don't
screenplay
disagree. It's just
is.
what I'm.
Well, not that we disagree. I think
I think it probably, because I think what you're saying is they're going to create a metaverse for us, and then they're going to have Bruce Willis and Surrogates. Have you seen that? Because that's what. Okay, there's a movie called Surrogates. Bruce Willis is in it, and essentially what they've done is everybody's sitting at home behind a virtual console. And every day they log into a superbot body, like can't be hurt, super attractive, never ages, and then they just go out into the world in this invisible body, or this invincible body, and then their old, decrepit body just getting fatter and awful looking, just sits at home, Dorian Gray, and over time.
That's kind of what I think, except I think they want to be able to upload their consciousness out of that body
into a machine,
like
Ultron, so to speak.
That's what I'm saying. So they put it into a computer. This is Ray Kurzweil talking about we want to upload themselves into a machine body. Okay, so you can make your body whatever you want, and they feel like it'll have physical sensations that they can appreciate as a consciousness saved onto that computer. They think that the computer will be sufficiently
advanced. And you're saying that's the only way you can survive planetary travel? Is that where that's going?
Well, that's one of the things, yes, because they're talking about...
It's a huge hurdle, is time and distance, and the fact that you can't breathe in a vacuum. And...
Yep.
So, yeah, maybe you're onto something, maybe that could... But in the computer world, you can keep creating...
Well, they think they're going to travel the galaxy for all eternity. The Voyager probe,
Star Trek.
Yep. So... That's about where we're winding up tonight, guys. Is they want to stick you in this metaverse. Why do they want you in the metaverse? It sounds pretty cool. If it was just
probably will be.
I mean, it does sound pretty cool.
Sounds lit.
I mean, you could get together in the metaverse with some friends, play some shooting games. Just hang out on look at a beautiful sunset in the metaverse, and it does sound kind of cool. But I think the thing is that they want it at the expense of the real deal.
Yeah.
And that's where I have a problem, is because they want to cut you off from the real deal, and your only access be through the metaverse. So we'll finish it up tonight. We are Tim and Cliff for the Iron Mountain Hour. We really appreciate you sticking with us. To all our regular viewers out there, I know, gosh, should we list them all? I don't know if they'd want us to list them. So I won't do that. Because we got about 40 to 50 regular viewers that check us out every week, and we really appreciate you all. Please comment on this, like if you've ever watched a podcast that you like and wanted to catch another episode, smash that like button and subscribe.
Smash it. That's a good word.
Yes. So go ahead and do that,
It
please.
does help you in the algorithm.
It does. It lets more people see our content. It lets more, if you share it. I mean, we don't have advertising budget here, folks. It's just me and Tim sitting in my freaking basement with some gear that I've scrounged up here and there to put together a little streaming operation. And it's pretty amazing that we're able to do this with the
two dudes, no budget, in a basement.
I mean, I probably got everything in here. I probably got a couple $1,000s in everything that we're using. Just imagine trying to put that on, get out and have a broadcast that could reach the whole world potentially for a couple $1,000s just 30 years ago when we were kids. Mm-hmm. You couldn't do it. It would take, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars to reach your local area at that time.
And that's not even counting, that's the equipment and not counting how expensive broadcasting is.
Yeah. So it's pretty amazing that we're able to do what we're doing here right now. And
but not to toot the horn. We do enjoy doing it, but it is nice knowing that there's people that do watch it. So
yes, and we really appreciate you, and we hope that you'll get involved in the conversation with us, and that you will invite other people to get into the conversation with us. We're going to have Jonathan and Dustin come talk to us about Nibiru. I think that's going to be next week. And then we're also we've got the Reverend Crash, who commented on the video earlier. He's going to come on with us and yeah, he said thanks, fellas. You're welcome, Crash. He's going to come on and talk some music stories and stuff with us in the near future. So we got a lot of cool stuff coming up. I've got probably 5-6 episodes that I've done the research for. I haven't really written the episodes yet.
Research.
So
I'm riding the coattails. Is that the word? I'll come in with a dumb example. My contribution today, and you saw all the tabs, he can point them out. Like, you go back and look at the video and look at all the tabs. That's stuff that Cliff did research for. And I came in with a story about how it was impressive to me that Philly didn't have a selection of decent cheesesteaks, and I should have looked harder. So, appreciate the research. So
it's got to be better than Steakums. And with that, we'll leave you. Although Steakums can be pretty damn good. But we'll leave you tonight. We appreciate you. I'll probably pop in Wednesday or Thursday. Hopefully Tim can join me and we can do some IRL content on the news that comes up. we got a lot of interesting news happening in Tennessee, and we didn't even have a chance to join it because we're kind of looking at bigger themes. So let's look at that on Wednesday or Thursday, and you guys have a good week. We'll see you then. Tune in, especially next Sunday. We're going to try to get it up at 10 instead of 10:30 next week. I think 10 is going to be the best time for most people. That's probably going to be the best time for us. So we'll go ahead and end it tonight. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll see you next time.